Picture this. April 9th, 1945. Dawn hasn't fully broken yet over Bavaria. The war is 31 days from ending. Allied forces are closing in. Berlin is burning. Hitler is hiding underground in a concrete bunker, writing out his last political testament. And in the frozen courtyard of Flossenbürg concentration camp, a man is being walked to a wooden gallows completely naked in the cold morning air. He is 58 years old. His nose has been broken during interrogation. His ribs are cracked. His body is marked by months of deliberate starvation. He is not a prisoner of war. He is not a criminal. He is Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, the man who, until 1 year ago, ran Hitler's entire intelligence empire. The man who sat at dinner tables with the most dangerous killers in human history and smiled. And the man who built Germany's most feared spy network and then spent nearly a decade secretly using it against the regime he served. He knelt briefly in the dirt and prayed. Then the SS executioners tightened a thin hemp cord around his neck, not to snap it, not for a quick death, but to strangle him slowly over a metal meat hook. Eyewitnesses said the death struggle lasted up to 20 minutes, and Hitler personally ordered every second of it. This is not a story about a war hero. It's not a story about a villain either. It's the story of a man who lived a double life so dangerous, so psychologically exhausting, that even the people who loved him couldn't fully reach him, and who died knowing he had done the right thing, even if the world never found out. Welcome to WWII Time Tales, the channel where we go deeper than the textbooks and tell you the stories that took decades to declassify. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now and turn on the bell notification. The story we're about to tell you took place 80 years ago, and it still hasn't been fully told. Don't miss what comes next. January 1st, 1887, New Year's Day. A boy is born in Applerbeck, a quiet industrial town in western Germany, to a prosperous family with every advantage wealth could provide. A grand villa, manicured gardens, stables, a tennis court, English governesses who coached young Wilhelm in languages before he was 10 years old. From the outside, it looked like the childhood of a future CEO or a cavalry officer, exactly what his father Karl, a powerful ironworks director, intended. Karl even bought his youngest son a horse for his 15th birthday, hoping to steer him toward the army. Wilhelm accepted the horse politely, and then kept reading sea battle stories. He was obsessed with one figure in particular, a Greek naval hero named Konstantinos Canaris, whose surname was almost identical to his own. He had decided he was going to the sea. At school, the Steinbart Gymnasium in Duisburg, he was quiet, small, and easy to underestimate. But his classmates noticed something odd about him. He wasn't just studious. He was secretive in a way that felt deliberate. He experimented with invisible ink. He practiced writing under false names. He kept diaries that no one else was allowed to touch. This was not a child playing spy games. This was a child already becoming one. When his father died suddenly of a stroke in 1904, 17-year-old Wilhelm moved fast. He applied to the German Imperial Navy, passed his entrance examinations, and on April 1st, 1905, reported as a cadet aboard the training cruiser Stein. He never looked back. Canaris devoured languages the way other officers collected medals. Spanish first, then English, French, and enough Russian to hold a conversation. He was posted to the cruiser Bremen in South America and immediately began building something the assignment never officially asked for, a network of informants along the coastline. He was barely 20 years old. By 1913, he was aboard the light cruiser Dresden, navigating the political chaos of Mexico's Civil War with a diplomat's instinct and a spy's calculation. When American and European nationals were stranded by the violence, Canaris organized their evacuation. He even personally escorted the defeated Mexican president Victoriano Huerta to exile, a task that required equal parts nerve and charm. When World War I broke out in 1914, the Dresden hunted Allied merchant ships across the South Atlantic and Pacific, fighting alongside Vice Admiral von Spee's legendary fleet. After the catastrophic German defeat at the Battle of the Falkland Islands in December 1914, the Dresden ran, hiding for months while British warships scoured the ocean for her. She was finally cornered and scuttled off Chile in March 1915. Canaris was interned. He escaped. French counterintelligence caught him during a subsequent undercover mission in Spain. He vanished from custody and made his way back to Germany by submarine. If there was ever a man built for what was coming, it was this one. In 1919, 32-year-old Canaris married Erika Canaris, the daughter of an industrialist, a cultured, artistic woman who played violin beautifully and moved comfortably through Berlin's intellectual social circles. Together they had two daughters, Eva, born in 1923, and Brigitte, born in 1926. Here is the romantic detail history rarely tells you. Their marriage was reportedly an unhappy one. Not violent, not traumatic, but quietly distant. Canaris was a workaholic. Even on public holidays, he was buried in files, signals intelligence, and coded correspondence. Erika played music. Wilhelm cooked. They occupied the same house like two people sharing a train compartment. Polite, careful, and fundamentally alone together. But Canaris loved two things with uncomplicated, unguarded emotion. The first was his two wire-haired dachshunds, named Seppel and Sabine, whom he carried with him everywhere, and once said were the only ones in this world on whose loyalty I can completely rely. He wasn't joking. The second secret in his emotional life was more complicated and more dangerous. During the war years, Canaris developed a relationship with Halina Szymanska, a Polish intelligence agent whose husband had been interned by the Soviets. It was through Halina that Canaris passed one of the most critical intelligence warnings of the entire war. Advance information about Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's coming invasion of the Soviet Union, directly to Allied intelligence. A man surrounded by killers, out a marriage that had grown cold, two small dogs, and one Polish woman through whom he risked everything. That is the real Wilhelm Canaris. In 1923, a young naval cadet had served under Canaris aboard the cruiser Berlin. He was brilliant, arrogant, and deeply disliked by every other sailor on board. His name was Reinhard Heydrich, and Canaris, who had always been drawn to complicated outcasts, took him under his wing. Heydrich spent evenings at the Canaris house, playing first violin with Erika while Canaris cooked dinner. Heydrich's wife Lena sat in the living room. The two families played croquet in the garden. By 1935, that same young cadet was running the Gestapo and the SD, the most feared secret police apparatus in the history of modern Europe. Their Berlin villas still sat side by side, their gardens touching. And they still dined together. They still played music. And the entire time, each man had informants planted inside the other's office. Canaris called Heydrich a brutal fanatic. Heydrich called Canaris that wily old fox. Neither said it to the other's face. Neither needed to. This was not friendship. This was Cold War inside a single street, played by two of the most intelligent men in Germany, with the entire Wehrmacht and SS as their game board. In 1937, Canaris personally arranged for senior German military officers to tour Sachsenhausen concentration camp. What they saw broke something open. Prisoners publicly whipped as a greeting for visiting dignitaries. Camp commanders describing ongoing systematic torture as casually as a hotel manager describes room service. Canaris did not take them there for approval, and he took them there so that no officer could ever again claim ignorance. That same year, he was overheard by trusted colleagues saying, from top to bottom, they were all criminals who were ruining Germany. When pressed on why he stayed in his position, he replied, "It has become my fate. If I go, Heydrich will come, and then everything will be lost. I have to sacrifice myself." He began secretly meeting with British intelligence operatives and senior politicians, warning them that Hitler intended to crush Czechoslovakia and that only firm, unified resistance, not appeasement, could stop a Second World War. Britain appeased anyway. The Munich Agreement of September 30th, 1938, surrendered Czech territory without firing a shot. Canaris watched it happen in silent, furious despair. And then came Poland, and the intelligence Canaris's own network helped deliver made the invasion devastatingly possible. On September 1st, 1939, German tanks and Stuka dive bombers carved through Polish defenses with such precision that the entire campaign was over in weeks. Canaris had helped build the map that made it happen. He toured the front days later. He saw Warsaw burning. He read Abwehr field reports describing Einsatzgruppen, death squads massacring Polish civilians. On September 14th, 1939, he walked into the office of General Wilhelm Keitel, one of the most powerful military figures in the Reich, and said face to face, "I drew Keitel's attention to the fact that extensive shootings were planned in Poland. The world would hold the Wehrmacht responsible for these methods." Keitel dismissed him. In late 1940, Hitler ordered Canaris to secure Spain's cooperation for Operation Felix, a plan to push German forces through Spain, seize Gibraltar, and cut Britain's Mediterranean lifeline. Canaris was the ideal messenger. He spoke fluent Spanish. He knew Francisco Franco personally. Instead, Canaris wrote an internal memo explaining exactly why the operation would fail. Then he quietly advised Franco that Hitler lacked the real military strength to occupy Spain if Franco refused. When Hitler met Franco at Hendaye on October 23, 1940, the Spanish dictator refused to allow German troops passage. Hitler, livid and humiliated, later told Mussolini he would rather have 3 teeth pulled than sit across a table from Franco again. Canaris had sabotaged the meeting from the inside, and Hitler never knew. Meanwhile, where Canaris was issuing official Abwehr papers classifying persecuted Jews as intelligence agents, using bureaucratic cover to smuggle them to South America. 500 people escaped through this loophole, and through Helena Szymanska, he was feeding the Allies' advance warning of Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's planned invasion of the Soviet Union, months before it launched. He was Hitler's spy master, and he was actively dismantling Hitler's war from the inside, one secret at a time. In February 1944, Heinrich Himmler finally convinced Hitler that the Abwehr was riddled with traitors. He was right. Hitler shut the entire service down and placed Canaris under house arrest. Released briefly in June 1944, Canaris was given an empty bureaucratic post in Berlin, a holding room with a desk. Then on July 20th, 1944, Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg detonated a bomb inside Hitler's Wolf's Lair headquarters. Hitler survived. The Gestapo began arresting everyone connected, or suspected, within hours. Canaris had known about the plot. Former subordinates had told him. He neither joined it officially nor reported it to Berlin. His personal diary, recovered by the SS, contained entries referencing meetings with resistance figures and private notes about Hitler's criminal conduct. That diary became his death warrant. On July 23, 1944, Canaris was having afternoon coffee with friends when SS officers arrived. He was transferred to a cell measuring roughly 5 feet by 8. No visitors, no food parcels, no access to the yard. Contact with other prisoners was forbidden except during morning showers. He was placed on deliberate starvation rations while the Allies closed in from both directions. April 5, 1945. Canaris was transported to Flossenbürg concentration camp. 3 days later, on the night of April 8th, he was brought before an SS court-martial. 2 SS officers, Walter Huppenkothen and Otto Thorbeck, had been specifically dispatched to Flossenbürg to ensure the executions happened before the Americans arrived. There was no real trial. The verdict had been written before he entered the room. That night, through the wall of his cell, Canaris tapped a final message in Morse code to Hans Lunding, the Danish spy chief imprisoned next door. The message read, "Nose broken at last interrogation. My time is up. Was not a traitor. Did my duty as a German. If you survive, remember me to my wife." Those were his last recorded words. In the gray pre-dawn hours of April 9th, 1945, gallows were hastily erected in the courtyard of Flossenbürg. Canaris was ordered to remove his clothing. He knelt in the cold dirt and prayed. Then they hanged him naked. Thin hemp cord, metal meat hook, designed for a slow death, not a clean one. The death struggle lasted up to 20 minutes. When it was over, his body was left exposed, then cremated, his ashes scattered into the Bavarian earth. No grave, no name, no marker. 31 days later, Hitler was dead and Germany had surrendered unconditionally. The man they erased had been right about everything. He had warned them about Poland. He had warned the British about Czechoslovakia. He had sabotaged Gibraltar. He had smuggled 500 lives out of Nazi Europe. He had fed the Allies intelligence that shaped the entire Eastern Front. And in the end, he tapped a farewell in Morse code through a prison wall, asking only to be remembered to his wife. He was not a perfect man, but in a world of perfect monsters, he made a choice, and he paid for it with everything. That right there is why we built WW2 Time Tales. Not to give you dates and battles, but to give you the people, the full, complicated, heartbreaking human beings who lived inside one of history's darkest chapters and still found ways to act like human beings. If this story hits you, subscribe right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment below with your answer to this question. Was Wilhelm Canaris a traitor to Germany? Or was he the only man in Hitler's inner circle who was truly loyal to humanity? We read every single comment. Every week, we go deeper. This is World War II Time Tales, and we'll see you in the next story.